Hello, everyone, and welcome to Canada's CPA Online Academy. Today, we have a special guest with us, Casey Chung. Happy to introduce him to this channel. So he is a CPA. He has worked with KPMG, and then he has made a switch from the traditional auditing career to now into CPA career counseling. So we will have a chat with him about his career, his services, and how he can help all the services to find their true path or true calling, even in the CPA zone, right? So welcome, Casey. Thank you for meeting us here. And you could start by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about your CPA journey.
Thank you, Deepa. Thank you so much for having me here today. And when we connected online a few weeks ago, I came across your profile and saw a lot of great work that you're doing to help our community. And here we are having a conversation, and I'd like to just have an open conversation with you to share with your followers and share with other aspiring accountants and current accountants or CPAs on how we could build careers that are aligned with our skills and our strengths and our interests. And my background is quite interesting in some sense. I'm born and raised in Vancouver, Canada. And I always like to start with that point because Canada is a pretty young country. And we as listeners may be at some point in our integration with the country, with the city, with the workplace. And for me, education was always very, very important growing up. So my grandparents immigrated here from China. Mm-hmm. Both my parents were born in Canada.
Okay.
And education was always so important because when they first moved here as first generation immigrants, these are my grandparents, they couldn't speak any English. Mm-hmm. So when they came here, they had many kids, a big family. It was always top of mind to get further education. So going down a couple generations to where I'm at, the education system here in Vancouver, went to public school, and it was always about getting good grades. It was always about being able, not always have to get perfect on your tests, but to do well.
Yes.
So in my household and my family upbringing, success was very much equated to our ability to succeed on exams or on competitions. There's a very measured way of defining success. So naturally, I went through my elementary studies, my high school studies, always with grades top of mind. And that forced me in a way to be very focused, right? Very focused on understanding how am I being tested? How am I being assessed? And it was very much focused on those results. Mm-hmm. So fast forward, I ended up going to UBC here in Vancouver. I studied business, and accounting was a course that I took in high school, actually.
Okay.
Took it in grade 11 and grade 12. And we learned debits and credits through singing songs, literally, through playing Monopoly. And my teacher made it very fun.
That's
Accounting was always very fun. So going into university, I had a bit of an edge because I studied accounting, and I did it for 2 years. And I had a small little internship when I was in high school, shredding paper mostly in the back office. But I got exposed to paperwork. I got exposed to office work and thought, this could be interesting. So throughout my studies in university, I gravitated toward accounting because I was good at it. I liked math, I liked logic, I liked reasoning. And it was pretty simple for me to have a right answer or a wrong answer. Mm-hmm. Very black and white in the studies, the education. And while at UBC, I ended up being able to join as a bookkeeper at Bench Accounting. They're a startup here in Vancouver doing bookkeeping for American clients. And then I had the opportunity as well to join KPMG as a summer intern. So through these experiences, through my education and understanding the business world, I really got drawn to accounting for the reasons of it's a skill that I have, that I've practiced for quite some time.
Yeah.
It's client facing. I got to work with a variety of different kinds of clients and a lot of learning, right? So when I had the choice to pursue the CPA program or not after graduating from university, it was actually not the easiest choice for me. I was actually torn between two directions.
Okay.
Do I want to do accounting or something else? Maybe that's technology, maybe that's real estate, maybe it's something else. But I chose accounting because it was quite broad. It would open up a lot of doors, understanding the language of accounting and the language of finance, I thought would be helpful.
Right.
So after graduating from university, I started full-time at KPMG in Vancouver as an external auditor, working with mostly private enterprises. And I chose private enterprises because I didn't see myself climbing all the way up to the top of the corporate ladder.
Okay.
I saw myself more as an individual that would potentially start my own business, run my own business, or work with a smaller team. And the reason why, well, going back to my grandparents, they ran businesses. They didn't work for companies. They didn't have command of the English language, but they ran grocery stores.
Okay.
So I always had a sense of what it's like to be in control and
Right.
to be responsible for your own work.
Yeah.
So I joined KPMG and spent my 3 years articling there and got a lot of exposure to accounting, to business, to networking, and really understanding what I want. But at the very end, when I finished my CPA, I felt even more lost, Deepa.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, whoa, I finished everything that I set out to finish since high school. I got my good grades, I finished my CP, but what next? That's where the really difficult part of my career came, was a bit of a crossroads. What
Was
I was so
that
driven.
was it for just for auditing or in general for all aspects you felt that? Because I
Yeah.
know like auditing for some people is very boring, it can get, but people find different interests. Like we have like different branches like FP&A or like finance or like in the corporate structure. Or so what was your struggle? Was it just the auditing, or you find like everything is not something that calls to you?
Mhm. At the beginning, it was auditing. It was, by the third year of doing it, it became a bit repetitive.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured that the work that I was doing, it didn't excite me as much as forward-looking work excited me. And in that time frame, I also joined different boards and helped with budgeting. I helped with organizing review engagements, and I put myself to the test.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There were no longer any grades that I needed to focus on. It was more so a shift of do well in school and graduate and get a job and get my CPA, a shift toward what is it that I want to be contributing to society? How do I want to be contributing to businesses and to others? So it started off as audit, not being exactly exciting me. So I branched out, tried other work. I did some fundraising work with United Way as well, as a secondment. So I spent 4 months away from KPMG. I worked in our technology group for a little bit, infrastructure group for a little bit. And through all those experiences, I realized that I just don't want to be working behind a desk. I wanted to be on my feet. I'm actually standing right now.
Okay.
I stand all day. I wanted to contribute to people and education and society in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And through working with numbers, I got there. I mean, I got to an understanding of how to communicate analytically.
Yeah.
But what I felt was missing in my life and in my career at that time, this is about 3 years ago, was I want to help people. And I could help people through their finances, or I could help people through listening, through
Mm-hmm.
communicating, through teaching. So that's what really drew me away from audit is one way, but it's more towards impactful work with people.
Okay.
And I got to do a lot of that actually when I was at the firm, while I was coaching and training and teaching the junior staff. I always felt so much of my fulfillment was coming from that part of my work,
Right.
which might have been like 20% of my job.
Mm-hmm.
And I got really curious, how can I flip that around and do 80% of my job helping and maybe 20% of my job accounting?
Yeah.
Right.
So was that the switch that happened to your consulting, career coaching side of business? And what was the, there is one always like it builds up, but there is one trigger that makes you flip, like So what was that point for you to make that switch into career counseling?
Yeah. I guess there were, I'll put it, two major flips. One was the loss of my cousin a few years ago. Very sudden loss, and it impacted me in a very deep emotional way.
I can understand. Yeah, that's hard.
Yeah, and this all happened during busy season. So what I found myself doing was suppressing and
dump more work,
putting aside my emotions and putting forward my work. And that worked for the first week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but it continued to pile on all the way to the point where I started to live in a bit more fear. Like what if I were to die? What if other people in my family or my friends were to get into an accident? And it really started to make me question, what am I doing? And while that was happening, KPMG also started a mental health benefit. So this is number one, is to address those deeper feelings. I started working with a therapist. Okay. And my therapist as well is experienced in career coaching. And I got this blended approach of therapy and coaching. And through that experience, I actually went to her initially saying, I'm not exactly happy with my career. But the deeper piece was, I don't know how to manage these very difficult emotions like grief and sadness and uncertainty. And through that work, I became clearer and clearer. I actually had the confidence to branch out and start exploring other career opportunities. And then a couple of years later, the pandemic happened. Yeah. That's number two. Already, I was thinking about the career switch when the pandemic happened and people were losing their jobs and everything was turning upside down. We had to work from home. It opened up an opportunity for me to better understand myself through deeper reflection. Right. And fortunately, I had the support of my therapist for about 1.5 years at that point. So I felt prepared. It was still very difficult, but I felt prepared to manage everything that was coming my way. And I realized that so many people are struggling right now. The longer that I'm sitting behind my desk crunching numbers, the less people I'm helping. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So it was really at that point where I needed to decide, do I want to be a leader at this time, or do I just want to wait for something to happen? And being a leader to me doesn't mean having a new title as a manager or a director. Being a leader to me was, I need to start doing what I need to do to be my best. Yeah. So it was that point where I strongly considered the switch and started enrolling for programs and talking with more coaches to see how I can benefit others during this very difficult time. That's great. That's a great like story too, like how certain things in our life motivate us to do something that we have had dreams for. But like, I think loss of your close family was a very what you can say sudden trigger or very high trigger. But in our everyday life also, I feel a lot of CPAs go through those stressors. So what would you say, what are like the 3 signs that you should watch for that you're not happy in your career and you should explore something else? Because our life, especially whether it's auditing firms or corporate, it's month end, year ends, audits, and it just continuous goes on, and it is stressful at different points. It is stressful, but how do you differentiate it, what is normal and what is something, this is just not normal work stress, this is something that is your calling is different? What would you say those are top 3 signs? Yeah, thank you for that question. It's very personal, I'd say. Right? Everyone will be coming from a different background. Yeah. And especially, like, how I'll relate it is we will all have different motivators. Whether that's a financial motivator, job security, job fulfillment, community connectedness, whatever those motivators are, they're really important. right? So I like to ask this question to myself periodically. Is the first one is, what are my biggest challenges right now? And I often talk with individuals who come to me saying, Casey, I want a new job, right? I'm not happy where I'm at. So they're clear enough on that. Like they're also in a position where they can change jobs, right? Mostly between finishing their qualification or right at the beginning, right after their education. And the biggest challenge I'm finding in these conversations is not the job. It's the emotion and the feeling of feeling dissatisfied, or the feeling of being stuck,
Right. Yeah.
or the feeling of not being appreciated or not performing to their standards. There's something underlying the motivation to change jobs.
Right. Right.
And when we dig to that level, what's the biggest challenge? We could then start a very constructive conversation. For many accountants, especially not right now, it's summertime, but well, some people are very busy still, but in the winter, during the busy season, tax season, the biggest challenge is stress. So the question is, how can we identify that?
Yeah.
Right. We then look at the unmet needs. What are my unmet needs? And for many individuals, it's sleep, as basic as that, not getting 7 or 8 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
Or exercise or eating healthy. In 2020 and 2021, the biggest unmet need for many people, social connection.
Yeah.
So our careers play a factor into all these pieces of who we are.
Yes.
But our career doesn't need to change. So people get confused. I coach people on career, but I really coach people.
Right.
Okay. So when we start to look at unmet needs, we could then address, okay, well, if sleep is an unmet need, go get some sleep. For some people, fulfillment might be an unmet need.
Yeah.
Right. Being connected to the purpose of the company they're working for. So they'll go out and volunteer. For some people, job security might be an unmet need. They might be in a startup. You know, there's layoffs happening this week. And well, honestly, always. And if security is an unmet need, there's a motivation to change jobs or to find supplemental income.
Yeah.
And the third one that I would bring in, so we look at the challenge, we look at the unmet needs. The third one is, what could I do today?
Right.
What could I do today to meet these needs, to overcome these challenges? And little, honestly, Deepa, little shifts in the long run.
Steps. Always baby steps. Yeah.
Yeah. So when it comes to normal, there is no normal. I mean, everyone's so different.
Yeah.
But the question is, do I want to be feeling the way that I'm feeling right now?
Yeah.
And like, yes, we need to accept ourselves. This is the struggle that I had when I repressed my emotions, was like, it doesn't matter. But like, yes, I am feeling this right now. And very important to understand our stress.
Yeah.
Understand our anxieties and listen to them and ask for help.
Right.
We don't have to do this by ourselves.
Yeah. That's true. And like, as you said, sometimes you're just not happy with the job, and there are, even within the job, there are multiple factors, right? It could be the piece of finance, like your salary as such, or the role, or your, as you're saying, appreciation part of it. You like, you're doing anything, you're paid good, but you just don't have that appreciation of your work. And some people crave that, some people don't, some people crave that. So it's very important to pinpoint what is it that is making you unhappy, like whether it's, and sometimes it's not related to job, it's just the outside life factors as well. Yeah, so that's very true. So can you give us an example or of your methodology, any specific example with your clients, as like what was the problem and how did you approach, and how did you help them to resolve that?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge that I want to share today is the challenge of self-doubt. And self-doubt is this feeling of not being good enough,
Right.
not being smart enough, not being experienced enough.
Right.
And these doubts could really block us from taking action
Yeah.
because we're scared of failure. We're scared of getting hurt. We're scared of rejection, right? So when I speak with people that are looking for new roles or new jobs or a new company, I often hear the doubts and the hesitation, but I also hear the motivation and the drive. So my methodology, it's very much a strength-based approach, a positive approach. So yes, we need to acknowledge our weaknesses and our fears, but let's double down on your strengths, what you have to offer.
Right.
So especially for individuals who have work experience, and I know many of your listeners might be coming from an international background, coming to Canada, like, yes, you have skills, you have talents that we could leverage. And yes, it will be a bit more challenging to find a role in Canada, similar to my grandparents when they moved here. It's no different.
Right.
However, the strong belief in oneself could keep us moving forward.
Yeah.
And really what I mean by that is embracing failure, embracing rejection, allowing yourself, giving yourself permission to fall.
Right.
Those failures and the mistakes that we really learn from. And as well, looking at our assumptions. So if we assume and believe that we're not good enough, our actions will follow that.
Right.
We will not apply ourselves to our best ability. We might not even apply for a job because it says requires Canadian experience or requires 5 years experience.
Yeah.
Right. So the biggest challenge that I hear is self-doubt.
Yeah.
And to overcome self-doubt, it's first acknowledging that we all have it.
Yes.
We don't need to battle it. It's about accepting, okay, I feel like there's a gap, but with the growth mindset, I can overcome this.
Right. Yeah.
I'm going to learn, I'm going to make mistakes, and growth takes time. So like we said earlier, the small steps, take small steps every single day.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Very, very true. Yeah. And like, even like a lot of people reach out to me from the channel. As I joke, like the channel is about CFE, but more people reach out to me related to like jobs and like that's the crucial matter of all the subjects. But yeah, like as you rightly said, self-doubt is, I see that a lot. And I know I suffered it because first is the language barrier. For the first generation, it's always like we speak English, like I speak English, but still it's a second language, right? So there is that little conversion in your mind happening. So the language barrier, and then the work culture is different. The way things are approached, said, narrated are different. So that creates even more self-doubt, especially in this immigrant workforce, I would say. So great message there that everyone has self-doubt at different levels of their own journey, and taking that one step towards the growth would help you. And we are accountants, so number wise, if you speak, it's just like if you do 100 applications, then it's just the 10% is the rate where you would get a reply, and just the 5% or 1% would go to final stages. So yeah, don't get discouraged there.
Yeah. I agree with that, and I use that analogy all the time. I mean, when we look at the equation, number of jobs applied for times response rate times interview times offer rate.
Yes.
But if we're only sending out one application because we're scared,
right,
I don't know anyone that's had a 1-for-1 chance. Well, I know some people, but it's not that easy.
Right.
So the more that you have available,
Mm-hmm.
and what I mean by that, the more confidence that you have available to extend yourself beyond your initial beliefs.
Yes.
Going outside your comfort zone, the more you can impress yourself.
Yes. Yeah. It takes time, patience, practice, and consistency, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you briefly mentioned the current layoffs, but on the other side, we still see there are a lot of still CPA jobs in the market. So what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on this is interesting. And if you're listening to this like a few weeks after when we're recording it, it might be different.
Yeah, yeah.
My thoughts are the job market is always shifting.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's always going to be shifts in the job market. And when it comes to timing when to apply yourself, always stay open.
Yeah.
Right? Always have your resume ready. Always be on the lookout. The market right now, even compared to a couple of weeks ago, the shifts that I'm noticing are a few weeks ago, a lot of jobs,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of demand for accountants and a lot of movement and turnover. And I think that's still relevant right now. But what this really means, Deepa, and for everyone listening, is that you have leverage.
Right.
If you're a job seeker, there's more options out there than in a market where there's an oversupply of talent.
Yeah.
So when you get your first offer, don't just take it, right? Negotiate.
Yeah.
Make sure that the parameters work for you, whether that's salary, time off, work location, is it hybrid, is it in person,
Yeah.
How much of your CPA costs are going to be covered.
Yeah.
All of these pieces are very important. And well, what I'll tell you is a 5-minute conversation with your recruiter or interviewer to ask for what you need. Again, relating it back to your unmet needs. If your unmet need is financial stability or work-life balance, you need to ask your employer, is it possible to accommodate for me?
Yeah.
And if you're not having that conversation from the beginning, it's going to be a lot harder to make any changes once you sign your contract.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm seeing, at least. And as well, we have a global market.
Right.
So depending on your residency and what country you're based in, there's different ways to connect with employers.
Right.
Or you could be an employee or a contractor.
Yeah.
So there's different ways that the economy is now adapting to get talent.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, there is a shortage of accountants given the number of jobs available and the number of individuals actually leaving employment right now. The great resignation is a real thing. It's still happening. I see it all the time.
Yeah.
So what I'll say is stay present.
Right.
Stay on top of it. Be ready to make decisions and don't be scared to use your voice.
Right.
It's super important.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. Great piece of advice. And if someone from the audience wants to reach out to you for your counseling or career service, how can they reach you? What are your preferred methods of communication?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. And I like these conversations because it's a conversation between you and I, but it's also a conversation for anyone that listens.
Yeah.
And I'm always happy to have a conversation with anyone that's looking to improve their careers, and whether that's an email or a call, I'm really easy to access. So caseychung.com is my website. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. And my email I could also share with you for the show notes. Always open to have a conversation. And what I'll also add to that is, as you're listening to this, another way to really improve your odds of finding a role is through community connection.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'd recommend is for people to listen to you and listen to me, but also listen to each other.
Yes.
Right? I know over the last couple of years, it's been harder to connect with people.
Yeah.
But I always encourage people to go ask for help, offer help. Like, we're all here to help each other out. Yeah.
Yeah. Have real conversations. LinkedIn is not the only source of connection. Go have real life conversations. I always suggest that. Yeah. Right. Any closing piece of advice for the listeners?
Yeah, I guess closing pieces are, if you made it as far as the end of this conversation here, is to let this all sink in. Right. And I know what I'm sharing, it's based off of my personal experience, and everyone will have different personal experiences.
Yeah.
Right. And if you ever have any concerns or things that you want to talk about, I'm always available. And as well, be patient.
Right.
I know it could be very difficult to see, especially nowadays when we have access to everyone's social media,
Yeah.
other people succeeding, but at the same time, you're exactly where you are right now, and it's exactly how it should be.
Right.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
So
It's
stay positive, stay grateful.
Your own growth is your own parameter. Don't compare it with someone else. And yeah, social media is not a parameter to compare with. You don't know what goes on in that person's life. Definitely, it's not a full picture. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for Casey for your time and great advice and talking. It was great to listen to your thoughts on a different side of CPA.
Yeah, and thank you for listening as well. One thing I will mention is I am a full-time coach now.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started at the firm, I knew I wanted to eventually start my own business. I ended up doing it this year. And being a CPA or getting my accounting education doesn't mean I'm an accountant forever.
Yeah.
I have an accounting skill set
Right.
that could be applied to all different areas. So that's one misconception that I hear all the time, is that if you are an accountant or a CPA, or if you got an accounting degree, you are only an accountant. That's not true.
Yeah.
And one day, eventually, I will be doing accounting work. I mean, I do my own accounting work, but it's a skill set that you could use at any time.
Yeah.
Right. So I like to empower people in that way, that I really do believe that individuals with an accounting or finance background, on top of their own natural talents and skills, that's how we're going to make the world a better place, is by using all of our skills and all of who we are.
Yeah. Find your ikigai.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thanks so much, Deepa.
Yeah. Thank you.